Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the character profile of the great Magnifico, aka Geoff Metcalfe, and this is the bonus podcast of episode 455 of Conversation Street. How is that for an entrance?
I really like that.
Here's Gemma. She hasn't got a nickname.
Are you the great Magnifico then?
No, I'm not. I haven't got one either.
What's your nickname?
I don't know, you call me all sorts. Hello everybody, we thought it was time we talked about Geoff, seeing as what he's been dead for quite a while, but we've had so much other stuff going on in the podcast, it's taken us a little while, and so you know what, you never know when he's going to pop up again. I don't know if we've seen the last of Geoff in Yasmeen's flashbacks and nightmares, but I don't know, it feels like the time is right to chat about him. Gemma, Geoff.
Yeah.
What say you? Good character?
Should we do the stats?
Oh, we can do stats if you like.
He was born on the 24th of April 1950. He died on the 9th of December 2020. The worst year ever in the history of mankind. He was married to Philippa in 1971. At some point he also was married to Tessa Metcalfe. And he also married Yasmeen in 2019. He has one child, Tim. He was born in 1972. Has Tim not got any... Tim's an only child, isn't he? He's letting the side down.
I think Tim has said in the past that he's got a brother. Right. I think that's been forgotten about.
He definitely had a dog that something terrible happened to, and we never found out.
I don't think we found out all the details about that. No, I think Tim has made reference to having a brother that's been retconned. He was also going to have a cousin or something at some point, wasn't he? Do you remember they were going to bring in a character in a wheelchair that was going to be Tim's cousin? Does that ring any bells to you? I mean, I'm thinking like 5 years ago, maybe.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the person. Wasn't there somebody a guy who was in a wheelchair who turned out to be related to somebody, and they went to his house a few times?
No, you're probably thinking of Evelyn's mate.
Yes.
Probably, but no, they were going to bring in an extra branch on the Metcalfe family tree a little while ago.
Just let it die.
Nothing came from it. No.
First appeared on the 28th of March 2018, and he last appeared on the 11th of December 2020 as the real Geoff, but he's a vision. On the 28th of December 2020, just appeared as a ghost. Yeah,
he's not made an appearance yet this year, has he? But
he's been a ghost.
The year is young,
and he's also been a nightmare.
Yeah.
Is he ever going to be a hallucination? Don't know.
Well, he was pretty much a hallucination on Christmas Day.
Okay, alright then. Then I want him to appear as a ghost.
Yeah, okay, ghost, definitely.
Number of appearances, 218. It seems really low for how massively influential he was.
But he was only in it for such a short amount of time, wasn't he? A couple of years.
He only started in 2018. Honestly, I feel like we had years and years of Geoff just like being weird and questionably annoying without them really going anywhere with him being like an abusive person. Yeah. He's played by Ian Bartholomew, incredibly talented and also good at singing.
He is quite good, good singer, isn't he? The story started off. He always did have a weird start. You're right, and I didn't really know what to. No, I did know what to make of him. I didn't like the character. I didn't enjoy the character, but it didn't feel like it was too long before the coercive control stuff really started.
Oh, it felt to me like he was in it for ages, and he was. No. It was kind of like, is this guy supposed to be likable? Because he's actually really obnoxious and annoying. And it turned out that actually that was I think you're supposed to always find him.
I think so. I'm going to say that
because I remember like. Well, we'll talk about it in a minute, but like the pranks he played, like the Audrey one, that was funny. I think everyone kind of found that funny. But then like the one where he played the prank with the broad beans on Brian, that was just like, that's just mean.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the Brian one was supposed to be like early alarm bells ringing.
I think you're right.
Watch out, this guy's not as nice as he may seem, because he was supposed to be like nice, jovial, jolly Geoff to begin with, wasn't he? But to me, he just did come across as irritating. But you're right, the Audrey thing, which again we'll get to in a minute, I guess, was that was actually quite funny when that happened. But okay, the signs were always there.
Well, you know what? broken clock is right twice a day. And if you're going to make lots of jokes, even if you're a horrible person, some of them are going to land eventually.
Exactly. So the casting of Geoff was announced on the 22nd of March 2018, so just coming up to 3 years ago now. And in the news articles that came out at the same time, he was teased as a potential love interest for Audrey. I don't think there was any mention of Yasmeen at all at first, and it also said that he would be a relation of an unknown street regular. So speculation was rife for, I probably have no more than a week or two, about who Geoff would actually end up being related to. But then it was a little bit longer, I think, until it was revealed in the show. I think maybe he was even credited as Geoff Metcalfe or something before the actual reveal came with the show. I might be wrong here. But we weren't to know straight away that he was actually Tim's dad. Now, here's something interesting that I found out about Ian Bartholomew. He's a local lad. He comes from Gosport, which is about, 25 minutes away from where we are at the moment?
I knew he was local.
Well, maybe not everybody listening to it did. I don't think I realised that.
Not everyone listening to him, not everyone listening to this will go, oh yeah, he's local.
He's local
he's
to us.
He's only local to us.
He's down the road. We could go and see him right now if only we knew which house.
No, he was born there. Doesn't mean he lives there.
He was also.
We know he doesn't live there.
No, you're right. Actually, he was doing acting on TV. He's done stage and screen and everything. But mid-70s was when he first started proper acting apparently. And
Don't call it proper acting.
Acting.
Just say he's been
not school play acting. He became a professional actor, and he was in Rumpole the Bailey. He was in The Bill. And he was in Foyle's War. He has got, if you look on his IMDb page, a massive list of credits from various TV shows from the 70s onwards. It seemed like one of the longest stints that he had, though, because a lot of these were just, one episode in and out kind of jobs. There was a show called Harry in 1995. I don't know anything about this. And he played a character called Snappy in that. Or did he play a character called Harry in Snappy? I don't know. I think I was right the first time. And he was in that for 20 episodes. And then there's another show called Without Motive, where he played a character called Ronnie Stocks for 10 episodes. Now, I'd not seen him in anything before he came in as Geoff. Did you?
No.
Didn't reckon. We're not very widely...
Don't watch a lot
not very cultured.
British TV. I don't watch a lot of British TV.
No, I mean, I can assume that I probably saw him in The Bill when he was in it, but obviously that was a while ago. He's also been in a load of films. There's one called If You Go Down in the Woods Today. And he's done plenty of theatre work too. And, fact fans, he also did a voice in the World of Warcraft games. He's I can offer no more information other than that.
Or something.
Yeah, maybe if it was like a horrible troll and that set him up for his voice, his role in Coronation
Corrie
Street.
casting guy was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
This troll is great fun.
If anyone listening to this has heard Ian Bartholomew in World of Warcraft and wants to tell us anything more about it, please do. I'd be interested to know. So in 2017, he recorded 2 songs for this album called Wit and Whimsy, songs by Alexander S. Bermonge, and that got to number 1 in the iTunes comedy album chart.
I didn't know that there was a chart for comedy albums.
There's a chart for everything.
But I love that.
I'm sure it's taken over by Tim Minchin.
I love comedy songs. They're one of my favourite genres of music.
Yeah, you can probably... I bet if you go into iTunes and you can like filter out, I bet you could find it. You could find some comedy bangers there, including maybe this. But obviously, more recently, he's done this other song, hasn't he? The... what was it called?
Surely you'll get to it.
No, I've got it written down. Oh yeah, This Time It's Forever, which was the charity single that he's done for Women's Aid. So he is multi-talented man, this Ian Bartholomew.
He's got at least 2 talents we know of.
Acting and singing.
Yeah, more than I can do.
And he graced us with his presence on Coronation Street for a good 2.5 years. So that's obviously going to be the role that he goes down and is remembered for.
I think he probably can do magic as well.
Oh yeah, you're right. He can saw women enough. It must be... I wonder what it's like as an actor to go through, 30 years plus of having roles in bits and bobs, all kinds of things. And then it's not until, so far into your career that you finally get that role that surely you'll be forever remembered for. Whereas you get other actors that, hit the big time straight away and then fade into obscurity. It's a funny old game, isn't it? Showbiz. That's what I think anyway.
I've never heard that phrase. Right, so now we're talking about Geoff.
We're moving on to talk about Geoff. We actually know about Geoff.
So in his early life, he was an entertainer doing magic acts. 1971, he marries Philippa after she became pregnant with Tim.
Now, Philippa, by the way, is Elaine.
Yes.
Don't forget.
So
Change the name.
Yeah, so her real name is Philippa.
Yes.
Her birth name, rather.
Her birth name is Philippa.
And then she changed it to Elaine because she hated her name so much. From having to listen to Geoff say her name.
Philippa. Yeah. No, I think it's all part of her hiding out away from Geoff.
So maybe
really
she didn't want to be called Elaine. Well, I mean, she bloody picked the name Elaine, didn't she?
Yeah.
I don't know many people that would pick that name.
Why? What's wrong with that? That's my mum's name.
I know.
It's a lovely name.
There's nothing wrong with it. I just find it interesting that, like, do you not think that names that are popular in certain decades sort of become less popular with the people in that decade? Like, you know how, like, I'm trying to think, like, for example, maybe people that were born in the 90s, like Britney, being called Britney. And so people that were born in the 90s, like, oh, God, no, I don't like the name Britney because I knew somebody or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Talking bollocks.
We're going too deep on this.
It's because I hate it when I hear somebody say my name so much. It makes me cringe. I don't like my name, but if I hear somebody say my name to me, I immediately get really angry. I don't know why. So anyway, so I can imagine changing my name to Elaine. So he's abusive to Philippa / Elaine in their marriage, and she walks out when she finds him in bed with her friend Tessa. She tries to get custody of Tim, but Geoff threatens to kill him if she comes anywhere near them again. Then Geoff marries Tessa, who's the one he was caught in bed with, and makes Tim think that she's his mum, not Philippa / Elaine. But, you know, Geoff's not very good at being a partner. They're not very...
He's tried 3 times and look at a failure.
Well, there's still that... I don't know who this woman that he had an altercation with in the pub, outside the pub. There's another mystery woman there somewhere. Things aren't great between them. They stay together because she helps him with his magic axe. Not for the kid, but she dies before 2013 at some point. Then Geoff, so Geoff has now got Tim, his son, and Tim has Faye. And Faye gets put up for adoption in 2011, and I can't remember why. Her mum was on drugs or something.
Her mum was a right druggie.
And Tim's useless; he can't read. So maybe they sent him a letter and he couldn't read it.
Yeah, that's probably true, yeah.
So, but he doesn't help Faye, but he's still in contact with the family.
This is what...
It's a bit of a murky past. It doesn't actually make sense when you logically look at it because it doesn't really... it doesn't...
Yes, one might wonder why Geoff doesn't step in to look after Faye and let
you might,
Anna...
Well, it's not even that. It's more the case of, like, why doesn't Tim hold a grudge against his dad for the fact that he let Faye get taken away from the family? Not that it's his responsibility, of course, but you would have thought there would have been a discussion at some point between them.
It must be hard when you kind of
have to retcon.
When you have to retcon things without it looking too much like one. Like even all this stuff with Tessa, and that's what Tim said his mum was called, and then it turned out it's not his real mum and everything. It all feels a little bit weirdly pieced together just to try and fit the narrative that they want. So,
how can we make this up?
Basically, but anyway, that's supposed to be Geoff's life before he comes into the show, which was in 2018. Early on in that year, he does get a bit of a shout out because in an attempt to escape the wrath of Pat Phelan, his predecessor in the Corrie villainy stakes, Tim and Faye go and stay with him.
And they leave Sally there for some reason.
Yes, Sally stays. She's all right. She's marrying it up.
I can't remember what happened, but.
That's
Tim
all we
just
need
in my
to
bad books, that's all I know.
So we first meet Geoff when Audrey goes to hospital. She's been mugged in the summer of 2018, and he's there doing the whole hospital DJ thing. She tells him that his music is terrible and says, look, you need to put some proper music on, Geoff. I want to hear Crazy by Patsy Cline. Instead he plays Shut Up or Your Face. comedy classic. Probably also made its way into it would have made its way into the iTunes comedy chart had that been a thing back then. And that's what we were talking about earlier, which actually was quite funny, wasn't it? But
it was.
Still, I feel so guilty now.
Because he does a big announcement before, and he's like, "Oh, I met a lovely woman called Audrey or something," and she's sitting in the bed going, "Oh, he's talking about me," because he pretended to sort of take her criticism with grace, but actually he was furious because we all know what Geoff's really like. He can't have any criticism whatsoever. He takes it far too personally.
Very fragile.
And then he played the "Shut Up Your Face" song, and her, she was chastised publicly.
She was, but they carry on. They still get on for a while.
I think she gets the funny side of it.
Yeah, although, and that kind of led to an episode where she got trapped in his radio booth for some reason, where she had to fill in. Do you remember when she was doing all the DJing and Geoff couldn't get in, and she was like, "Oh, da-da, what do I say? That was kind of funny." But I mean, the whole Audrey link to Geoff pretty much stops dead after this, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Considering he was teased as a potential love interest for her, it's all about Yasmeen from that point onwards. Because when Geoff, go on.
There was definitely a bit where they had Yasmeen and Audrey were both possible love interests, and I can't remember which way round it was. One of them, I think it was Yasmeen, didn't like his jokes.
Yeah, that's right.
And Audrey did, and so you were like, oh, who's he going to end up with? One woman really likes one part of his personality, the other one really likes the other. And it wasn't until Geoff sort of says, I'm not really like this all the time, that Yasmeen really grew to...
Yeah, I vividly remember there being a scene where Yasmeen and Geoff were sitting down next to each other in the hospital, and he was like saying, look, that's just my radio personality. I'm not like that in real life. I'm a quite nice, sensitive guy, really. Which was weird, because actually he's not like that at all, because I think that the Geoff he portrays on the radio is very much what he's like, larger than life, thinking he's hilarious, cheesy as.
I don't know how you can be so unself-aware to not realise that is who you are.
I don't know whether he was just trying to, get into Yasmeen's pants, or whether still at this stage the Coronation Street writers didn't know exactly what his personality was going to end up being, because you quite often will get characters who come on and they're one extreme or the other, and then they mellow out over the course of the time in the show, or they change a little bit, But anyway, Yasmeen likes the idea that this is actually a nice, sensitive guy, and somebody who does charity work as well, which she's obviously dead into because of the community centre. So they start having a few dates over the summer. He starts helping out at Speed Dial, and he also offers to buy Imran's shares in it as well that summer, which Yasmeen turns him down. She doesn't want him getting too involved in it. And I think at the time I was thinking, thank goodness for that, because by the time we were in August 2018, I think I'd pretty much decided I wasn't a fan of Geoff, and giving him any stake in a business on Coronation Street, I wasn't having any of that. And it's not the hatred that I went on to develop for him, which was boo Geoff, rhubarb kind of thing. It was not just this character. He just doesn't sit right with me in the slightest. Get rid.
There's something really unsettling about disliking a character that's supposed to be popular, or disliking a character that you don't think you're really supposed to dislike, and really heartening when you know that you're supposed to dislike somebody and you do.
Yeah, I mean, we've all got characters that we can't understand why they're so popular.
Or we just dislike them for no real reason.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you get characters that come in where Coronation Street desperately tries to, shove them in our faces and say, look how funny this character is. Look how well they get on with this. What a brilliant partnership these two make. And we watch it go, not really. It's and this is a really strange example of it, because he's obviously a really, really talented actor. We've seen from what he went on to do in the show. It's such an odd start, and they say that right from the beginning they knew that he was going to go a bit off, but so I'm fascinated to know how much of what I didn't like about Geoff from these early days of him was purposely supposed to be getting on my wick. He arranges a charity fundraising event for Jack that summer as well, autumn, I can't remember. And he also shows his good side when Sally gets wrongfully imprisoned for, what was it, fraud, wasn't it? And he's like fighting for her and trying to get her out of prison.
And that was when like Tim was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe you did it.
Well, that was the whole Tim and Gina and everything saga as well and everything. But Geoff was definitely on Sally's side during that anyway. Aww. Good on him. And I think it was at Christmas 2018, it must have been, when we got our first proper clue that something wasn't going to be quite right with Geoff. And I think Yasmeen made a comment about like a necklace or earrings or something, and she said like, oh, Geoff doesn't like it when I wear this, or I've got to wear this because Geoff like, or I can't.
So
remember there was something.
Part of her appearance,
and it sounded weird. Slight mention, which then didn't get picked up again for months after that. But it was obviously a little teaser back then that even right from early stages of the relationship, all was not as rosy as it first seemed.
Yeah. So in 2019. We get too much information about the nature of Yasmeen and Geoff's relationship, and this we had some interesting discussions about this, didn't we? But it turned out that this was another one where Geoff got a bit of the benefit of the doubt, because Yasmeen says to Kathy, I still haven't been intimate with Geoff. And
if you know what I mean. And
so before he was really a villain, you could obviously sort of take this and say, oh, I can, obviously if Geoff probably wants a physical relationship, it must be difficult, he's given her time and everything, but it must be frustrating. So you could see both sides, and you could see Yasmeen's side, like, she's only ever been with one man in her life.
Yeah.
And that relationship didn't end, like, she didn't want really to end the relationship. It was because of his affair, and then she couldn't stay with him anymore. That happened, and so you can see both sides of it. But as looking at it now in retrospect, I feel really disgusted with myself that I ever was like, I can kind of see where Geoff's coming from, but we did. But back then it still wasn't obvious what was going on. So Geoff hurts his back after he slips on some food at speed dial and basically makes Yasmeen into his servant for weeks on end. I think
that's his excuse to move into number 6.
Yes. Then we sort of find out that he was just kind of embellishing this a bit more, and he says, oh, I just wanted to spend more time with you. So a bit of gaslighting going on there.
Yep.
And again, you can give him the benefit of the doubt there, can't you? I mean, people have done stuff like this for comedy purposes. You can imagine like characters like Tim and Steve, like, pretending to be sicker than they are, and then everyone's like, what a cheeky chappy he is, he just wanted some cheese on toast, ha ha ha. Whereas this is like, no, he's manipulative. Then in the early 2019 was when he advises Brian that talking to his broad beans will help them grow, and he actually that wasn't even the joke that he was playing, that's just bad advice. The joke that he was playing was he took the beans out of the pots and was making him grow broad beans from nothing.
I think, and I couldn't find any reference to this, so I might be making it up, that the previous autumn we'd seen Geoff taking some beans out of Brian's tub or something, and then it seemed like, why did they do that? And then it came back to it in the spring, and and he'd been taking all of Brian's beans out of the pot. This was in the Victoria Gardens, wasn't it? And he plays this cruel trick to make him look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Which doesn't take much for Brian, to be fair.
Really.
But
Brian can do it by himself. That's why it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
He also pretends he's grown these beans, but he bought them from Freshco.
Yeah, he makes Brian stand up and read out this creed almost, doesn't he? Like, I am Brian, I am master farmer, and I've grown the best beans of Weatherfield. And I was watching it think, that story didn't sit right with me. Partly because of like, I didn't like Geoff at that time, and it's like, well, why are you doing this? But also because I was like, well, Brian, you're not that naive that you think that this would actually affect the quality of your veg.
Also, didn't somebody find out and sort of tell him he was being a dick?
I think that Yasmeen did.
Yeah. So this was like one of the first times that people were like, no, you're being a
yeah, but it still wasn't at that point a coercive control thing, was it? So I think looking back on it now, it was quite clever how they put these little bits in to say, he's not as nice as you first think.
Yeah.
So that when he starts, the proper campaign against Yasmeen that summer, that's when you know, you go, it all makes sense.
Then they have a meal. He makes Yasmeen some stew and dumplings, I think. And Sally and Tim were supposed to come around, but he put them off. And he gets really offended and hurt when she criticises his dumplings.
Yes, she says she thought they were cauliflower.
I don't know how badly you need to screw up dumplings. And I think it's worth mentioning for people that aren't from the UK that we're talking about little fluffy flour and suet dumplings that are, they're fluffy,
lovely.
like gooey, starchy things. They're not like don't have fillings in or anything.
It's surprised that Geoff ever actually got that job at Speed Dial in the end, didn't he? With his pinny on and cooking in the kitchen when he's going to get dumplings right. I
think in America it might be similar to a cobbler topping.
Yes, I think you're right. I think you might be right. And it was around this time, because it was in when it was officially announced that this coercive control storyline was happening, because I think there'd been hints in the press beforehand, and obviously we'd been, led to suspect throughout the spring of 2019 that things weren't quite right here, and some of the way that he treated Yasmeen, we were like, I think we can tell where this story's going, but there was a big blaze of publicity in June 2019 saying, right, we're working with Women's Aid, this is the story that we're doing, he's going to lead her down this path of coercive control, this is going to be a long-term story. So we knew what we were getting from that point on.
And it sort of ramped up from that point on, didn't it?
Yeah.
He also criticised her for putting Sally down. And I don't think that... This was another thing where it's like, Geoff doesn't care about Sally. He only said that to make Yasmeen feel bad. Mm. Do you want to do any of this, or do you want me to do all this?
No, you carry on, that's fine.
So he gets annoyed at Yasmeen for letting Alia pick Ryan to DJ at a student night at the restaurant, because he's a magician and a DJ, don't forget. So he, in revenge...
Multi-talented, just like Ian Bartholomew in real life.
Yeah. He gets Emma to be his magic assistant instead of Yasmeen, and Yasmeen has to apologise and feel guilty and bad and terrible, etc.
Yeah, that was one of the first signs, I think, that Yasmeen was changing. I remember apologising for things that she didn't really need to apologise for, or grovelling when a simple, sorry or whatever
or a
would do.
Would have been fine.
Yeah, basically.
So there was a funny wine tasting evening. I think this had Imran in it as well.
It did indeed.
At the bistro, and she's getting these texts from Geoff, and she's ignoring him because she's drunk, and she's also enjoying herself. He gets annoyed, and when she comes home, he pretends that he's cooked Charlotte the chicken.
Foreshadowing. It makes me wonder whether back then they knew that was what her poor fate would eventually be.
It's a very interesting thing to contemplate, isn't it? So he also pours water all over Ryan's DJ decks and says it was Yasmeen that did it.
Yeah, that was the next day.
Yeah,
so he blamed it on her having a hangover or something after all that wine. Yeah,
and he then starts to insinuate that she's got a drinking problem and starts to make her think that she does as well, trying to get in her head. And mentions it all the time and stuff like that. Then Yasmeen walks home from work and she gets mugged on the way, and he begins to try to prevent her from leaving the house, using that as a reason why she shouldn't go out, and kind of like blaming it's victim blaming, but not like outright, not like, oh well, did you have a bag of money with a pound sign on it over your shoulder? It was more like, oh well, you're very weak and you're a woman and it was dark and you shouldn't have, going out at night, bad idea.
I don't even remember whether it was a nighttime one, to be fair.
I've got an image in my mind of it being at night, but perhaps I've made this up in retrospect. So he's like, yeah, don't leave the house anymore. Then there's a bit where Ryan and Alia invite some DJ friends around, and they're all drinking, and
including Yasmeen.
And so they're all having a good time, and he gets jealous and annoyed because he can't cope with people having fun without him or having anything that doesn't involve Geoff. So he basically makes it look as though one of them has stolen Yasmeen's bracelet. Obviously, it was him that did it. He sells the bracelet, and then he manages to get Yasmeen to apologise to him again. When she doesn't take his side when Ryan finds a replacement bracelet in Geoff's pocket.
Yeah, they made out like Ryan and Alia, who were or trying to take Geoff down all the way through this, find this bracelet in his pocket and go, "Ha, here it is," and he's like, "No, actually, I bought a replacement to give to Yasmeen.
Nice,
you didn't
man.
believe me." Yeah.
But why don't you believe Geoff is a nice man?
I think this was at the point on the podcast where we were kind of discussing, does he know what he's doing is evil? Because a lot through this, and some things that Ian and even Shelley have said in interviews as well, have been like, he doesn't realise that what he's doing is out of order, and he thinks it's perfectly natural for him to,
I've
to
said
do
this,
that, and the other to try and protect her. Or this is the third relationship that he's had where there's been this coercive element to it. So for him, it's just kind of second nature. But seeing him standing there, I think it was in Kitchener Street, with this guy with his boot open selling this, and you think, you must know.
Some things it's obvious that he knows what he's doing is wrong, but other things not so much. And I've said before, I think that some people can find themselves in unhealthy relationships and without realising what they're doing is manipulative and coercive, and without knowing that they've got these problems like personality disorders and stuff. It's perfectly possible that you just are completely unaware. And I don't want to say that you're also a victim of this, but in a way you can suffer from being manipulative, because you drive people away and you can't have a healthy relationship. It's obviously not on the same level, and I don't want to make excuses for people, but I remember when we were talking about this on the podcast before, and I found a charity that was for people who are abusive in relationships to help them and counsel them. It's very easy to just write people off and say, you should leave them and they should never... But, you should leave an abusive relationship. But then that person is going to move on to another relationship. And so what do they do? And how can they stop this cycle? Because there's got to be a way. Do
you think that would have been a satisfying ending for Geoff instead of falling to a death to be plucked by chickens?
No, because we want him to be punished, don't we? And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to be nicey about people that are abusive, but I do think that everyone can have an unhealthy element in their relationship, like the way you won't take bins out, the way that I talk about how horrible you are on the podcast and stuff. You know what I mean? Everybody has those elements, and some of them get completely out of control.
Yeah, I don't think a redemption story for Geoff would have been narratively satisfying in the slightest. It wouldn't have
been narratively satisfying, but in a way it might have been helpful for people to have gone, oh God, I do that. What do I do about it? Just jump off a roof?
Yeah, exactly. More helpful than saying, if you're in an abusive relationship, just lead him onto the roof one day. Yeah. Preferably at night. Maybe it's a bit slippy because it's in December and a bit Christmassy.
Honestly,
let nature take its course.
To be clear, the best advice is, if you're in an abusive relationship, please leave. Don't try to say, "Oh, let me help them overcome." And
which is what we were all screaming at our screens to Yasmeen at this point. But she started to become such a shell of her former self and doubting herself and apologising for everything.
It was horrible to watch. This happened to one of our favourite characters.
Yeah.
So he's set up this. He basically is not he's making himself look good, and he's also making other people look like they're the manipulative ones. And it would be very difficult if you're Yasmeen to work out what the heck's going on. But she kind of has to take his side, really. And he starts to take control of the house finances, and this was when it ramped up again to another level. He takes out new home insurance with his details on it, not hers. He gets cameras installed in the house so he can spy on her, saying it's for her own security. He also had that camera that she didn't know about, which was hidden in the CD rack that nobody ever used.
She didn't like the cameras being there.
So
she made him get rid of them all. I think it was her, but he left this one in the CD rack to be not found for a good while, and that was something that I don't feel that they handled that as well as they could have done, because for months and months Coronation Street fans were like, what about the camera? Have they found the camera? When's Yasmeen going to find the camera? She's being made to clean this house top to bottom. Why hasn't she found the camera yet? Why haven't the police found the camera after they investigate after the stabbing?
Or was it this year?
I can't remember exactly when it started.
Yeah, at the same time. So at the same time that he is controlling the finances, he's also making her clean and putting the crosses everywhere. So she has to, basically undermine her and, because when somebody says, "Oh, can you clean the front room?" you don't go, "Right, let me just scrub the skirting boards."
No. Not even us when we had our house viewing done recently.
Michael, I did actually. If you look, there used to be a big, thick layer of dust all the way under that radiator, and now it's gone. Have you noticed?
Did you find the red cross that I put? No, obviously
not. So, yeah, and also the finance stuff, he basically gave her like a tiny budget of what to cook, and only gave her cash. She wasn't allowed her own bank card. Only gave her like £10 a week or something for food, then demanded that she cook these sort of elaborate dishes with stuff that she didn't have. And then if she managed to pull this off, he would get annoyed with her because she kind of didn't fall victim to his stupid plan, and then he would go, "Oh, I hate this, it's horrible, I'm gonna have
what's
chips."
this slop? There was 2 or 3 times I can think of when he was like, "I'm gonna go and get a takeaway."
Yes please. So that happened, and then he also he had a medical appointment with Dr. Gaddis, and he made out that he was a lot sicker than he actually was, making her think that he's got cancer.
Yeah, because I think it was just like a routine appointment that he went to, and he comes
like
back and he doesn't say, "Yasmeen, I've got cancer," but he starts dropping hints.
Yeah, he basically
that would lead her to believe that.
Exactly. He knew exactly what he was doing, and then he tells her that she's exaggerating when he confides in Sally what's actually going on.
Yeah, because Yasmeen says to Sally, "Oh, I think that Jeff's got cancer. What shall I do?" And Yasmeen, and then Jeff's like, "What are you talking about? I don't have cancer. I never said that I had cancer. You've made poor Sally worry about me." Classic
gaslighting. This is like a really, really classic example of leading somebody to believe something or making them think that they're saying one thing and then going back and saying something completely different and claiming that you never said anything of the sort in the first place. And so you've got no idea where you stand with that. Then he makes Alia move out, so that he's got complete control of Yasmeen. And I think a lot of the stuff with the finances and the cooking and everything and the cleaning happens once Alia's moved out, doesn't it?
I think
it doesn't really happen as much before then. And then they go on holiday to Vegas and they get married while they're there. And when they come back, Alia's devastated to find out that she's married behind her back. And Geoff kind of makes out that it's really Alia's fault that they had to do it because they knew, like, you would disapprove and, I didn't want to upset your gran on a wedding day, all this kind of stuff, making her try, making out as Alia being unreasonable to be like, don't marry this monster. And they also have a little party, and she makes some crab things.
Canapes, yeah.
And he's furious when he finds that Kathy... what was it? Jeff's really proud of these crab things. And I don't know if it's his recipe or something.
I can't remember, but Kathy ends up finding a bit of shell in it,
She finds a bit of shell in it, and he's, like, really embarrassed because he can't stand to lose face ever, ever, ever. And it's, like, one of the worst things you can do is to embarrass him. And so when everyone goes, he picks it out of the bin and makes Yasmeen eat this bit of crab shell as, like, a punishment. And that was like that. I think that's kind of physically abusive.
Yeah, definitely.
There wasn't a lot of that in the
there wasn't. He never hit her.
But you don't need to have that to be in an abusive.
I always found it. It was quite shocking when they got married. I don't think we saw it coming necessarily. And even looking back on it now, I still don't see Yasmeen as his wife. Even though she's changed her name to Yasmeen Metcalfe, I still very much think of her as Yasmeen Nazir still, and that's the Nazir house, the Nazir family, and I think she still goes by Yasmeen Metcalfe as well. I mean, I would think she needs to drop that name and go back, but then does she go back to Nazir, the name of her other awful controlling husband, not in the same way, or are we gonna eventually find out what Yasmeen's maiden name is? But I think it would be very odd if they choose to keep her as Yasmeen Metcalfe for much longer.
Can we ban the phrase maiden name?
Why?
I hate it. It's like it's birth name. Because it makes out like it's inevitable that you're going to change your name at some point if you're a woman, and that's not true.
Maybe she's got a really awful birth name as well, and she doesn't want to go back to that. So it's like, I'm either Yasmeen Metcalfe or Yasmeen Nazir or Yasmeen Pooface. So which one do I go to? Right, 2020, I'm going to take over for a little bit. Now, you did a very good job of 2019 there, Gemma.
Thank you.
So, Geoff is still going on about Yasmeen being an alcoholic. He's made her believe that a perfectly reasonable amount of alcohol that she's drinking is far too much.
I think in Weatherfield, it's safe to say that everybody is borderline alcoholic. So
yeah.
I think he might be on the right track.
Well, he makes her go to an AA meeting with Peter, and he thinks that that's going to make her think that she's a real alcoholic, but actually it has the adverse effect.
It's
that
like,
she comes back and
those
she's
people
like,
are nuts.
I am nothing like that. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm fine. I can still enjoy a bit of a drink. And he's like,
oh,
okay,
yeah?
then. Okay, you drink this bottle of wine then.
And
he totally Bruce Bogtrotters her, doesn't
Yeah.
he? And makes her sit there and drink this bottle of wine, basically forces it down her throat. So
I'll
she gets
volunteer as
utterly
tribute.
sloshed. Awful stuff. Then we have one of Geoff's defining moments, and I would say most memorable scenes for me, the magic box scene. So he's putting on this show in speed dial. Yasmeen has been roped in as his magician's assistant. She has to wear this spangly dress, all this makeup that she doesn't like, take her glasses off and everything. She's feeling really, really uncomfortable about this,
And
but she does it.
well.
Yeah, very
It's something,
vulnerable.
I don't know if it's as much of a familiar feeling for guys as it is for women, but what you wear can really, really mess with your head and make you feel uncomfortable and vulnerable. I know that guys, sometimes if they feel like they're being forced to wear a suit and then it's a bit too formal, but I don't think you ever really feel uncomfortable to be sexualised, do you?
I've never had the opportunity.
Well, exactly.
I've certainly never been made to wear a spangly dress.
Exactly, but I don't, there's an extra dimension there of like loads of baggage to do with gender that perhaps not familiar to you.
So she gets the courage up to take part in this show, which is the one that goes wrong and earns him the nickname Jiggle-o Jeff.
Embarrassing him.
Yes.
One of the cardinal sins.
Exactly. Because the box gets jammed, doesn't it, with Yasmeen inside. She eventually escapes. And you see this look of triumph on her face when she gets cheered and everyone thinks it's amazing. And that's when he calls her a no-fish cow or something, or a bitch or something. I can't remember what. And awful.
Cowing tar.
Rotten cowing tar, he calls her. So he's been totally embarrassed because everyone remembers him as Jiggle-o Jeff from after that point and is chanting at him, all in good fun, but he can't handle it. So he goes home and kind of shoves a phone in her face and watches her cower and blames her for the whole thing going wrong, making her think that it's all her fault. He also, not long after it, locks her back in the box as a punishment in the lounge, pretending that the catch has slipped, which is the excuse he gives to Tim when Tim comes in later that day and rescues her. Jeff's like saying, she was just in there practicing. I just went out just for a little bit. It wasn't that long. And Tim believes him, as he probably would, because Tim's his dad and, he's looked up to him all his life. You would believe him.
Jeff's his dad.
Jeff's his dad, yeah.
Well, also, it's not really something a lot of people know a lot about, coercive control, and you wouldn't immediately think, my dad's abusing his wife.
No, exactly.
It's not a logical
you believe him.
thing to jump to with no prior sort of warning or knowledge. And Tim's not the most switched on kind of. It's not like he's like browsing social justice forums to work out how he can help people that are being discriminated.
I'd like to challenge you on that, Father.
Not very socially conscious. So. Not surprised that he missed these kind of clues.
Yeah.
Lots of people would.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't blame Tim for this.
No.
Well, for a good time, Tim was singing his dad's praises and was blind to the abuse and the torture that he was putting Yasmeen
harder
through.
To defend the longer it goes on.
But equally, if you put your flag in this camp, it becomes harder to say, no, I'm wrong, and lose face on that. So after this, you thought that was bad. Next up is when he serves her Charlotte Bronte for realsies. She's cooked another meal that's not good enough for him in his eyes. He sends her upstairs.
Yeah, like a child.
Yeah, goes out to the garden, pounces on poor Yasmeen's chicken, Charlotte. And next thing we know, he's serving it to her. She
That's
actually
a lovely
eats
roast
this.
dinner.
Yeah, she
and
thinks
when
it's
I think
lovely.
About this
chicken
scene,
and broccoli.
When I think about this scene, I think it's funny.
They made it.
It's inherently ridiculous, isn't it? In a way.
They really went
But
down the dark humour route with
also-
Yasmeen saying, "You killed Charlotte Bronte."
I don't think it's. I don't know if it's intentional.
I think it was a little bit.
But it also makes me hungry. Because it looked like a really delicious dinner, and I haven't had a roast dinner cooked for me since Christmas, and I love roast dinner so much. So
Meat and chicken is your favourite of the most meats
I
that we
wouldn't say
have.
it was my favourite.
Oh, I thought it was. You like all the little bits
I
that go with
like
it.
chicken and bits. That's what we call it in our family,
Yeah,
with the little
sausage
stuffing and the
stuff
sausage.
in
Yeah.
there,
Mm.
So Alia around this point starts to do some digging thanks to Claire's law.
Oh, hang on, no. He gaslights her again and says, "Oh, what do you mean? Why are you so upset?"
Yeah.
She stopped laying.
Yeah, you've been complaining
and
about
he also
it. So
there's a bit of a sinister threat here too, because he's basically saying she served no useful purpose to me. She wasn't contributing, and so I killed her.
Yeah.
Is that all right, Yasmeen? She's getting on a bit. Do you get what I'm trying to say? She wasn't laying eggs.
dried up. Yeah. So this was the Claire's law thing, which was lets you find out about the past police records of people who you suspect of being abusive or something like that, isn't it? Do you remember the exact?
It provides information about somebody's history to
help get people out of these kinds of relationships.
Yeah, I don't have the information down in front
You
of
can
me.
go look at our listeners. And this is where we find out about him and another girlfriend causing an affray in a pub once, which is what you alluded to earlier. So she's starting to think, there have been more people in the past. Little does she know at this point about Elaine / Philippa, obviously.
I think this was something that Yasmeen had to request, wasn't it?
Yes,
I don't think they give the information to just anyone who asks.
No, Alia and Toya went in there to kind of flag up the issue to the police.
Yeah.
And then Yasmeen kind of secretly meets them in speed dial, I think, one night.
Yeah. This was really interesting because this was Yasmeen kind of admitting a little bit to herself that there's an issue.
Yeah, around about this point, she was starting to get the bottle to stand up to him, which was lovely to see. And then he criticised her for something, and she'd go back and
well, there was lots of stages to this. There was not realising at all that anything was wrong. Then there was thinking, this isn't right, but it's my fault. And then it turned into, no, this isn't my fault at all. There's something that I need to get out of this. Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is around the time as well that she found out that she'd got chlamydia as well. And she knew that she couldn't have got it. She's only ever
spontaneously catch chlamydia from
so she was like, why
on a toilet?
Why has he got chlamydia? And he starts saying, no, it was you. Well, it couldn't have been from me. He calls it a disease-ridden tart, saying it must be you that brought this to the family. How disgusting! And
I don't understand how he ever thought that he would get away with making her think that she had contracted
he just made her question everything that she ever said or thought.
There's a limit, isn't there? He kind of made out that it was her fault that he had to go and see these escorts. First of all, he started saying, I was seeing them because there was a bit where she found out that he had been looking them up, and he pretended it was to do with his job. Yeah,
with his radio show.
And then he said, right, basically, I have seen them. I have seen escorts, but it's your fault because you're a horrible woman.
Yeah, you drive me to it. Yeah. So then we have the big one, the big night. We have a whole episode pretty much dedicated to Yasmeen and Geoff and the torture that he puts her through all day, leading up to making her wear this very inappropriate for her red dress that was very revealing, low cut, didn't fit her.
It was really fancy and very, very formal for a night out at the pub. Yeah,
he'd changed her wardrobe gradually over the course of the relationship anyway, hasn't it?
Still hasn't changed back to how she used to
No, it hasn't.
Because it was a confident woman's wardrobe, and it was also it also had elements of her Indian heritage in it, because she would wear a scarf over one shoulder, so she'd wear sort of like a jumper, but then she'd have a scarf over her shoulder, as you might wear if you were wearing a sari.
But this particular dress was so not her, and he makes her does he make her take it off, or does he make her put it on in front of him or something? And she's there kind of ashamed of herself in the lounge where he's barking orders about this dress to her. Takes her to the pub, like you say. That ends up in an argument when she finds out that he's bankrolling Sally and Tim's wedding with the money that's actually her money. So it all climaxes in her going home.
Well,
with
he
him.
also he shames her and says, "It doesn't even fit you. I didn't even buy it for you."
Yeah, exactly. He goes home and he says this. He says he says that this is all your fault.
He's also sort of saying, like, you embarrass, and
you
it's my
embarrass
money,
me
it's
this
our
evening,
money.
I'll do what I want.
How could you not allow poor Sally and Tim to?
Yeah.
Because he got
He's been playing the victim throughout all of this, and he's like. He's thrown her food on the floor and everything. There were like 3 or 4 scenes, I think, in that dining area where she's been made to feel bad about the food that she's served and everything. And she has to. There was one where this is before then, I think, where had to eat curry off the floor or something after he thrown it down there.
Really
but yeah, this particular night he comes out at her with a knife. She hits back with a wine bottle, whacks him round the head, stabs him in the neck with a jagged bit, and he ends up there jiggling on the floor, seemingly dead.
Yeah.
But no, he survives.
This was so shocking.
Yeah, she gets arrested.
Yeah, she says she did.
She's kind of separated from Geoff for a while at this point because she ends up getting.
Well,
banged up.
they never get back together after this. There was always a bit of a danger that might have happened, but Corrie decided to go down the route of her.
Realising.
She was still under his thumb for a certain length of time in prison.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he gets released from the hospital. Alia and Ryan tried to stop him moving into number 6 for a little bit, but he manages to get in, deletes the film footage from the night of the attack off of his laptop, which Tim almost catches him doing. And this is again where Geoff starts playing the victim, saying, I had this camera, it was just to protect my family. I didn't tell the police. I should have done. Tim, please don't tell anybody about this because I feel so bad about not mentioning it to the police before, and it didn't film anything anyway. And Tim falls for this hook, line, sinker. Geoff then throws the camera away. We see it being taken out by the bin men the next day, and for now he thinks he's safe. Just before the trial is about to start midway through last year was when he managed to get hold of Yasmeen on the phone as well, and threatens her and intimidates her over the phone line, and then that's what culminates eventually in her having the heart attack on the day of the trial as well, which postpones the trial somewhat, and his story is left to play out back in Weatherfield without her, and it kind of then turns into who believes him, who's starting to realise that he's not a nice guy, because people like Alia and Ryan always knew what he was like, but there was particularly Kathy and Brian were going back and forth on who they believe, and Kathy would want to believe Yasmeen, and then Yasmeen would say something. There was a bit where Yasmeen kind of shouts at Kathy for
not being she was slagging off men, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
And then and Yasmeen sort of stood up because you could hear Geoff speaking through her, like saying, women are so ungrateful or something. She was basically like being sexist against women in response in a very Geoff way. Like you can imagine them sitting together watching TV and Geoff going off on a rant about something he was watching, and Yasmeen just sponging it all up and then regurgitating it later on. But the thing is about this is that it was really quite clever, because I think a lot of people watching this would sort of think to themselves, it's so obvious. Like if I was in this situation, I would know that what was happening, and I would help Yasmeen. And I think it's bad, and I think some people still don't really get it. Like, Kathy was in the wrong and everything. But when you've got 2 people and you're not around them all the time, and like both of them are saying that they're being abused, because Geoff would say that Yasmeen he flipped the switch, and he said that she was an alcoholic, and she would get drunk and then she would abuse him physically, and this being stabbed in the neck with a wine bottle was just the worst example of that.
Yeah, well, when Sally and Tim find out about the escorts, he kind of
Well,
turns
yeah, he
it and
says,
says,
"Oh,
"Oh well."
she's so cold to me. I needed to find affection somewhere."
Yeah.
So how would you know? There's really no way.
Well, Sally starts to take Yasmeen's side, and we
Yeah.
get to see this great split between Sally and Tim, where he's still
Because-
staying with his dad, obviously, and she's saying, "No, I think there's something not right here."
Well, Sally's like, "Yeah, I know Yasmeen well enough to know that it's not her that's the problem." But you know, she was right here. But the thing is about it is that people knew Geoff for years and didn't know that he was doing this. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's really difficult. It's really tricky.
It was about this time as well that Philippa turns up now, or Elaine, or whatever we want to call her now, because she's heard that Geoff seems to have claimed another victim in Yasmeen. So she goes to see Yasmeen in prison and says that this happened to me as well. Geoff does not like her being back on the scene and manages to bully her into leaving. She's only in it for like a week or two, isn't she?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah.
She sees her long lost son Timothy, but he's like, "I'm not having you here to thwart my evil plans. Off you go with your woman." And we're left to wonder, what has happened? Has he done her in?
It did seem like at one point he may have killed her.
Yeah. Didn't he didn't we see him dropping a mobile phone or a SIM card
Oh,
or something
he
into
destroys
the drain
something, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's all very mysterious about what's happened.
So why
there.
would you do that unless you're trying to hide where a body was?
Yeah.
But no, he's just being a dick.
Geoff continues to wind Alia up after this point, like by getting an alcohol license for speed dial, which he was always dead against.
Well, first of all, he always had the bee in his bonnet about alcohol at speed dial, and so he originally let people bring their own, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then it changed to
they're getting the license for it because he was 50% shareholder in speed dial at this point.
And she had a religious exemption, objection to this, and I think that it really was a case of Geoff didn't like anybody having an influence over people that wasn't him. So I can see him being a sort of person who would not like his anyone who's anything to do with him. So like his girlfriend or wife or granddaughter in inverted commas taking influence over their religion, over what he said. Like if he says something, that should be the end of it, and you should not argue with him or say anything different. The fact that Alia kind of deferred to a higher power than Geoff was not acceptable to him, and I really don't think he was that bothered about the alcohol, except for the fact that he couldn't control Alia's beliefs about it.
He's also trying to, get Alia out, isn't he? Hoping that she's going to say, "Right, well, you have the business then."
Yeah, trying to change something that's hers, and put his influence on it, and put her off of.
Now, sadly for Geoff, things start to go wrong around that time as well,
Sadly
because Sally goes and steals Geoff's laptop, brings it back, guesses his password, the Great Bank Never Go To, and they discover in it wasn't the deleted folder, it was like a cloud folder or something on the laptop, this footage, not from the secret camera, but the camera that he'd shoved in Yasmeen's face that night of the magic box incident. They realise there's no defending him, because Faye was also very much on Geoff's side that year. Her granddad, she would be, but after this they realise just what a nasty piece of work he is, and everything that Yasmeen has been saying, because she is sort of saying, no, he's been abusing me, that all of this is true.
Oh yeah, because when Elaine went to go visit her in the prison, she was still a bit iffy about what had happened to her, but Elaine recommended a book that she got from the prison library that she read, and it kind of opened her eyes about what had actually been going on. Because really, there are so many different people and so many different personalities, and everybody's relationship is different, and people interact in different ways. But actually, abusive relationships are very formulaic, and there's a very set pattern to a lot of the behaviour that happens in these relationships, and it's weird how kind of paint by numbers it can be. Don't you think?
Yeah. I'll maybe come to that later.
People have shared experiences, don't they? From relationships. Totally different people, different countries even, and they all share, like, yes, he did that to me. Yes, my husband did that to me.
Yeah. So this is when Geoff really starts to lose it. He doesn't like it when things don't go his way, and we see him lose it and get mad at a Hoover or something at one point, don't we? He behind closed doors, he realises that all his supporters, all his lies, he's been able to trick up until this point a lot of the neighbours into liking him, or but now he's got
Sympathising,
nobody left.
Yeah.
So there was that episode where he ruined Sally and Tim's garden party by dancing to Mr. Bombastic and then coming in and smashing their chimney up and stuff, which was
great. This was when I think it kind of went off the rails a little bit as regarding realism and it kind of became just about entertainment and the shock value of it, because I never really bought that he would. It's like Corrie's like, oh, he's a villain. What would a villain do? But actually, his brand of villainy was not quite as off the rails as this.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. But he had also been wronged by being trapped in a conservatory during Sally and Tim's wedding as well by Abby.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he was proper riled up by this point. And then that leads us to Yasmeen's trial in December, anniversary week, 60th anniversary week.
Don't forget that he started dating Christine, who we thought would be a much bigger part of the story.
Yeah, it didn't really turn into anything.
He starts grooming her. Really,
yeah, as being his next victim,
and telling her all these stories about how horrible his family has been and how he's been mistreated and maligned and wronged by Yasmeen, and she buys it.
Yeah.
And he also tells Ray that he's going to sell his house. He wants to move to Cyprus with Christine, and he agrees to like an under-the-table deal where there's an official price that he sells it to that Yasmeen will end up getting a percentage of because they're married and it's shared property. But he also gets sort of an extra bonus cash injection so that he can run away and start his new life in Cyprus. Yeah.
So, sorry, I've forgotten about that. Yasmeen's trial then, just beforehand, he manages to goad Tim into punching him, so Tim can't be a credible witness, and that Tim was going to say about the cameras thing that he'd seen on Geoff's laptop. But
he doesn't end up even being a witness, even though in reality they probably still would have called him.
Yeah.
And I don't also think that they needed him to talk about the security cameras.
Well, every little might
really
have helped.
matter.
It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because Geoff makes the silly mistake of going to the hospital where he this like psych hospital where Elaine's been banged up for a little bit, goading her into basically scaring her into not testifying, doesn't he? Doesn't work though, because she turns up, reveals Harry abused her, and basically he's taken down by a combination of that. Imran, who gives this magnificent speech and is able to trap Geoff into saying, well, I wasn't at the hospital that day, but Imran knows that he's got some evidence to prove that it was definitely him that was there. Geoff ends up snapping, sort of starts ranting about Yasmeen, walks out of the courtroom in disgust when Yasmeen's eventually found not guilty.
He shows himself up.
He does, yeah.
It makes it very difficult for the jury to have found any other verdict than...
Indeed.
Because we had so many discussions about this, because I kept saying, at the end of the day, it's a trial to say, did Yasmeen stab him in the neck or not? And like, by her own admission, she did, and we saw her doing it. So I don't get what this trial is about. But they were able to establish that it was as a result of his abusive... personality, and the abuse.
And it was kind of self-defense.
So
it was about the bread knife, wasn't it, as well?
Yes, that's true. I think that was a massive part of it, actually. The fact that he had the knife
he was coming at her with this knife. Yeah.
Even though I still don't think that he knew that he was doing that, but
I don't know.
We watched it again.
Doesn't matter.
And he did.
He definitely had the knife.
I don't know.
So Geoff decides that he needs to scarp her.
I always have to be devil's advocate, don't I?
You do. Geoff decides he's going to scarp her to Cyprus, taking Christine with him. However, Alia gets to Christine first, tells her exactly what he's like, so she dumps him. He's mad, whacks Alia with a cash tin at speed dial before going to visit Yasmeen at number 6, setting the house on fire,
before that,
chasing her onto the roof.
He made a few attempts before this of going, come on Yasmeen, let's go home together, or come on Yasmeen, let's do this. Yeah. He goes to see her at number 6. He's like, Yasmeen, let's be reasonable. But then,
he
tells
when
her,
she doesn't play ball.
He had told her that she had to go and get her stuff.
Yeah. He set the house on fire. She goes onto the not very well at all. She crawls onto the roof to try and escape him. He follows her. Long story short, he falls down, gets dead on the patio, surrounded by Yasmeen's chickens.
Almost exactly the same way that Mufasa died in The Lion King.
Yeah,
holding on to something, going, help me, and then just falling to his death. He wasn't ravaged by buffalo, But chickens.
Chickens
It was
instead.
a herd of chickens trampled him to death on the floor.
Yeah, very poetic.
And
that
Scar was Yasmeen, but she was good.
yeah, kind
And
of
was
similar.
Charlotte Simba? No.
That's not good.
It
That's
doesn't.
Tim.
It doesn't really.
He's Timber.
It's
So
not
anyway,
completely the
since
same.
dying, Geoff has made a couple of posthumous
I love
appearances on Coronation Street.
This happens more and more in Coronation Street in recent times, and I'm not over it. I'm still loving these.
Well, which it happened to Sinead as well, didn't it? She just
Sinead
couldn't
and
leave.
Rana.
Yeah. So she's clearly still not over him, and she's
Well,
having
no,
flashbacks.
she's not over
and-
his effect
Yeah.
on her
Yes.
and his
And
control.
we're seeing her coming out the other side a little bit now, but I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't the last that we've seen of Geoff.
I would
But,
be
for
surprised
now,
if we saw him again.
his story is over.
She and Tim don't even go to his funeral.
They don't. So sad. So that is the story, and that's given us a good hour's worth of stuff for a character that, as you
He
say, was
was
only in
in,
it for a couple of
Like,
years.
yeah, just over 200 episodes, but it's such a fascinating, because it was an issues-based story, and so there was a lot of realism built into this, and Coronation Street worked really hard, and so did all the actors involved to tell it in a kind of really honest and realistic way that would be of benefit, to the viewers, because it would be easy to kind of exploit this for shock value. And I think you can argue that that's what soaps do.
Yeah.
But they have a sort of social responsibility as well to educate as well as entertain people, and they take that seriously, sometimes more so than others. There are stories that really arguably are issues-based storylines that get treated as jokes or throwaway bits of
Get
entertainment.
sensationalised or something.
Yeah.
But this one was done.
Yes.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about it sort of following a pattern and being a bit, paint by numbers kind of thing.
Is this what you're getting? Is this what?
Yeah.
You're picking up on that?
When I think back about Geoff, he's still, despite being, the big bad for 2.5 years on and off, and his death being the culmination of the 60th anniversary episode and everything, I still don't put him, right at the top there in the pantheon of Corrie villains. And I think part of the problem, even though I loved the story and there were some fantastic twists and everything in there, I think that it did feel a little bit too much like we're trying to teach you about coercive control, and a lot of what he did, like when it was announced that they were going down this route in 2019, and then said, and some of the things that coercive controlling abusers do is cut you off from your friends and family. They take control of your finances. They make you think that you're crazy or alcoholic and everything. And as the following months went by, we got to see him do all of that. And as I was watching it, I was kind of thinking, this is the bit that they said would happen. This is the bit where he does this. And there wasn't as many kind of surprise twists for me, because it felt like, that they said that this would happen. I loved things like, the magic box scene to me is definitely up there with Geoff's best scene ever. His best scenes ever. The Charlotte Bronte eating, amazing scene. I loved the really intense scenes when it was just the two of them, when it was like, late night scenes, and he was, throwing the food on the floor or calling her all these awful names, and that leading up to the stabbing scene. Amazing stuff. But it did to me feel just a little bit like, maybe predictable's not the right word, but it didn't have as many twists and turns as some of the great Corrie villain stories have had.
I think you're so wrong. I think your main argument seems to be that you knew that this was going to happen. Like they told you this is how an abuser works, and then they showed you. Is that
but
right?
even if they hadn't told it.
Well, I need to point out that they probably released that information the same reason that they told us about Aiden's suicide, because they knew it would be triggering to some people. And we know it was. We know that some people had been in abusive relationships and they found it very upsetting to watch. But we also know that other people found it quite validating, and they watched it and they went, yes, this is what they do. This is what happened to me. So, I think that they had a responsibility to the viewers to warn in advance that this was going to happen. I don't think I saw that list of like, this is what abusers do. And I also think that if you're going to tell a story that's, because the thing, it's kind of unfair in a way to compare Geoff to other big Corrie villains, because nobody was doing an issues-based storyline about what's it like to be married to a serial killer when they had Gail and Richard Hillman. You know, it wasn't about that.
Or Eileen and Pat.
This story was about an issues-based story, and so it wasn't about shocks and twists and turns. It was about realistic portrayal of abuse. But you're saying that there weren't any shocks and twists and turns, but they packed in loads into this story.
The moments that were, which was the chicken, was the biggest one for me.
The chicken, the
that
box.
was amazing.
The two box scenes. One where she got locked in the box by herself in the house. The other one where she was in the box in the performance. You've got the bit where she stabbed him with the wine bottle, and you've got Charlotte, and then you've got his death. That's 5 massive, big, twisty shocks in a story that only took place over 2 years. I think you're being a bit unfair.
It feels to me, and I don't want to downplay him, because he was a great villain, and he certainly
really good.
He certainly rose in my estimations as the years went on, and the fact that this is a character where, you know, within the first month I was like, get this character off my screen, I hate it, towards the end, but this is one of the most compelling characters on the show at the moment. There were still a few too many scenes where he, you know, did something awful, and the general response from Corrie fans was, oh, that Geoff, grrr, and it didn't often feel much higher than, grrr, I shake my fist at you, you nasty man. Because, you know, because he didn't often come across as being really clever. And
I don't understand your argument.
No, I'm maybe expressing it wrong.
I'm trying to understand what you mean. You're saying it's too low stakes or something?
No, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. It was just...
I know that one of the things that you had to say about the story as we were watching it, and you kept saying over and over again, nothing really happened this week. It's all the same thing. It feels like he just is doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that was a deliberate choice on behalf of the show.
Yeah. Because
he kind of did push the envelope a little bit every time. He kind of pushed the boundaries a bit further. And you know that story about if you put a frog in water and you gradually turn the heat, everyone knows that it's being boiled. It kind of felt like that with Yasmeen, where he drip. He just kept pushing his control onto her, and she didn't really notice how bad it had gotten. And I think that's how I think it was important that Corrie did that. And I think, if anything, the criticism of this story is that it was a very condensed time period. 2 years from meeting to, you know, being so controlled that you couldn't leave the house, and you gave up your bank details and married this guy, and you know, allowed him to dictate almost every aspect of your life. Many people who go through abusive coercive control relationships, this happens over years and years, even if not decades.
Yeah, and actually in Corrie terms, this was, you know, one of the longest stories that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that too. Yeah, you're right. I'm not arguing for a story of this nature to have taken place over a longer period of time. No. But I'm just saying, if you were to throw criticism on the pacing, the only way you could do it is to say that it didn't take long enough. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I just don't. In my eyes, he's not right up there, and maybe it's to do with, maybe I like my Corrie villains to be a bit more charming or something. You know, like the Phelans, like Richard Hillman, like even Charlie Stubbs, who had a very similar story with Shelley back, you know, 15, 20 years ago, whenever it was. And I liked his evil smiles. I think I like that kind of villain, and that's just, I guess, my personal preference.
Yeah, but the thing is about him is that he was distinctly unlikable, but he was still compelling to watch. Yeah. And that's Ian Bartholomew's you know, his talent and his charisma. It wasn't... And his kind of, it's very easy to overlook how skilled you have to be to pull something like this off. And
It was
all you have to do
interesting.
is compare him to any of the other really forgettable villains that we've had on Coronation Street. I don't want to name names, but there are people that have been in the show as a villain who've just come and gone without anybody really caring.
Yeah.
Anyone can act like a bit of an arse, but to draw people in, being a very compelling personality, it takes a great deal of skill to do that.
It was interesting comparing him when I'm thinking about the other big Corrie villains, that a lot of them that are charming as well, and were able to charm the other characters, yet nobody really liked Geoff that much. I mean, at the beginning, even then, the other characters were saying, "Oh, he seems like a nice guy. He's a bit of a fool, really." But quite often with the other big bads on Coronation Street, they've got everybody eating out of the palm of their hand, and Geoff just lost any all of that, and he became very, very unpopular, and all the other characters were just creeped out by him, like that bit where he goes to the pub and says, "Oh, Jenny, you're a bit like my mum," and calls her mum. And people
creeps her out. Yeah,
people didn't like him. They knew there was something not right there.
But it's really an unappreciated talent to be hateable, to as an actor to portray a character in such a convincing manner that people hate your character and don't want to watch
and it's not a love to hate, is it?
No.
I think that's the thing. That's the thing. A lot of the other villains were love to hate ones. Like, I go with Pat Phelan, and then Richard Hillman. Oh, this is a brilliant story. And John Lindsay. What's he going to do next? And I didn't feel that with Geoff. So
it wasn't like what
capers
will Geoff get up to next?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't like that at all. It kind of reminds me a bit of like maybe like in Game of Thrones, like Joffrey, where you just hated him.
Yeah, similar.
What's that guy? What's the other one who had Theon under his thumb? What was his name?
Ramsay Bolton.
Ramsay. He was hateable, wasn't he?
But I don't think that Geoff was quite as detestable as those two characters.
Well, he didn't kill people and torture them and stuff.
But when he had his moments, like
as
I come back to the Charlotte Bronte
can
thing again. That was his lowest. That to me that was, if I'm thinking about what were his worst crimes, that thing where you feed your pet to your spouse,
it's horrible, it's detestable.
That to me was the biggest.
But he was a humdrum villain. His crimes were committed in a domestic sphere, and I think that
he wasn't a serial killer.
It's easy to think that these people are less evil or not as big of a villain, but in a way I think they're worse, because your home and your relationship should be the safest and happiest you are. You should never be scared to be in your own home with your husband. But these men, and there are some women that do it as well, are arguably worse, because they do this over years. They undermine people's confidence. They turn people's personalities into, and make them fearful and affect their lives and give them PTSD. So, they don't have a body count, but the psychological impact of this.
Oh yeah, I know.
Is horrible, and the worst thing about it is that it's going on now.
Yeah, I'm not downplaying that at all.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying, like.
I mean, for you, where would you say that he is on the ranks of Corrie villains? How...
It's difficult. This is the thing. He really deserves to be in a category all of his own, because he is an issues-based villain, and I don't know if we ever had one of those.
Not particularly.
He embodies an issue. Like, if there was a character on Coronation Street that represented cancer, he'd put them in the same category. He represents coercive control and domestic abuse. And the other characters weren't about tackling that. They were a lot more bombastic and larger than life and really colourful.
I suppose in some ways he's similar to like Frank Foster, maybe, because he wasn't bombastic, was he? He was about the rape. He also
lied and gassed at people and tried to make lie his way out of things and make women think that they deserved what he did.
That scene where he rapes Carter and then said, like, "You made me do it" or something. Horrible. That was repulsive.
Yeah, I think as a society, I think we weren't at the same level of understanding about these things as we are now. And I really think that Frank Foster's story might have been received in a different way if it was done now.
Well, the same with the Charlie and Shelley one as well, because that
but
was certainly...
can I just also say that stories like that are what contribute to our evolving understanding of what the situation is, you see. So I'm not criticising it. It was a product of its times, and it's kind of like the foundation upon which we're building this understanding as we go. And that's why I think shows like Coronation Street are really important, and I don't think they get the credit that they deserve.
I wonder if the Charlie and Shelley one was playing out now, whether they'd have done it any differently, because I don't think that felt like an issues-based story at the time, even though it kind of was looking back on it, but that was back in the time when Coronation Street wasn't being accused of having too many of them. It was just a story. It was almost like, I don't know whether we'd even heard of the phrase issues-based story back when Charlie was pulling Shelley's earrings out and buying her dresses that were too small for her and everything.
But it's really interesting to look at like the history of Coronation Street and how it's evolved over the years, and our understanding and the way that things have been presented to us have changed. Like, if you go back right to the very beginning of Coronation Street, you'd have Stan and Hilda, and Stan would beat Hilda for doing something to embarrass him. There was definitely a point at which he got a black eye, because she copied the numbers for the lottery and made him think he'd won the pools or whatever.
Well, he also makes a joke at Irma and David's wedding, doesn't he?
About how to treat your wife.
You just belt them.
Yeah, and it was like, this is just what it's like when men and women, this is what it's like. And from that to go 60 years later now, we've got this really complicated and well-researched, nuanced story about a woman's descent into kind of madness brought on by her partners just gaslighting her and abusing her. I think it's remarkable to look at the progress that, like, Coronation Street and us as a society, how we've gone from one to the other. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, yeah,
I think it's a testament to, like, how the show's evolved over time, and also how our understanding of, like, gender and politics and, you know, relationships and the power dynamic in a kind of
and I think if
straight couple, how that's shifted.
If they hadn't been able to play it over all that time as well, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as affecting. And then that's one of the things that a soap can do better than any other drama, because there's nothing else where a story can last 2.5 years. You can have thing up on the screen that says time. 2 years later.
Yes. You can watch like clips, and I mean, other mediums have portrayed abuse in just as an effective manner, using different techniques. Whereas this is the only way you can actually watch it happen in real time. Yeah.
Even though, as we said earlier, it is actually a lot more condensed than, sadly for some people, it actually is.
So this, I think, is one of Corrie's most important stories, and Geoff is like the most important part of that story.
Yeah, he is. I agree, definitely. And very, very important character to the show. I do wonder what his legacy will be.
I don't think it's going to really... I think that people aren't going to give this story its due as we go through. It might get forgotten, but I'm going to say, I still think, like, historically speaking, looking at the history of Coronation Street and also looking at society in general, I think that this story is like a super important story for raising awareness about something.
It makes me...
And it's educated me as well about stuff, and I also, as I watch this, I've seen this happen to somebody I know and heard people telling me about it happening to them. And I think it's advanced our understanding, or some people's. I'm not going to say that everybody, because there's some people unfortunately well aware of what this was.
It's also help people see about that it can happen to anyone, and the whole thing about just because, you know, you're a strong person, it doesn't mean you can escape it. And there were quite a few people at times saying, well, this would never happen to Yasmeen, she was too strong for this. And but those are the people that justify the story being told to me. So people, and the same thing's happening with Ray and like what happened with him and Faye. And the fact that there are still people saying, oh, well, he didn't rape her, or it wasn't, it was, just
she got something out of it and he got something out of it. You know, it was a kind of transactional thing. They're the people that justify this being a story being told, because everybody can watch a story about somebody getting murdered and go, oh yeah, you know, that was a bit off, wasn't it? Shouldn't have really murdered him. But these stories are still eliciting reactions in people that make it apparent that they don't get what they're seeing and they don't understand it still. And until all those people are all on the same page, these stories are still important.
Keep on playing them. Right, should we call it a day there? I think
we've said enough about
dissected Jiggle-o, Geoff.
Oh, you mentioned the charity single I think it's also really nice to see how supportive Ian Bartholomew has been towards Women's Aid and talking about people who have go through this. And I mean, I know that coercive control isn't just primarily a thing that it's not just men doing it to women, but to be true to the story that Coronation Street was trying to tell, they told it from that perspective, and so his support of Women's Aid was as a result of that. And there are definitely charities that help the situation the other way around.
Yeah, I think Bill Ward also became a patron of Women's Aid as well, who played Charlie Stubbs.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, Coronation Street has tackled it with Tyrone being abused by Kirsty. So that story has been told the other way around, but perhaps it was too long ago for people to remember.
Looking back on that as well, I think it felt like quite a long story, but really that was like, 8-9 months maybe, the Tyrone and Kirsty story.
Yeah.
Interesting to see how
and they definitely told it in a different way to the way they would tell it now.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't that long ago, really.
Yeah, you're right.
Because we talked about it in the show, didn't we?
We did. That was one of the first big storylines that we covered on the podcast.
So there you go.
Right, let's leave it there. Great villain, important character. Still, for me, isn't right up there, but I completely see the importance of the story, the character.
This is part of Coronation Street's social history, I think.
Yeah, indeed.
The history of the show. This is an important sort of noteworthy historical story that I think should be referenced in the future.
Yeah, it should be. I hope it will be remembered, and I'm really interested and excited to see what happens to the character of Yasmeen now, and the fact that she's not, disappeared into nothingness since this is all kicking off, and we've been able to see her and Elaine. We've got Elaine on the show now.
This
hopefully
is the thing
for
about
a long
Elaine.
time.
She's still here.
And I think it's still more to see.
Very wise choice of Coronation Street. You have another character who had the same experience as Yasmeen, because it's showing us different perspectives and it's also showing us different reactions. So like immediately that Geoff died, Elaine just transformed into a completely different person. Like the weight had been lifted from her. That's not
now she's free to be herself again.
A very realistic reaction. Maybe I think Yasmeen's is probably a bit more realistic, but I think it's fair to. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I think it's important to have those two different characters.
Yeah. Definitely.
And the final thing I just want to say about this whole thing is that the funniest bit about this was the way that who was it? Kathy, who had been feeling bad about abandoning Yasmeen when she needed her the most and not realising what was going on. The fact that when she saw Geoff's body being taken away, she said,
"Off he jiggles."
There you go, and that's a good way to end this.
And he would have hated.
Absolutely, would have hated it. Yeah, and the fact that he also got a misspelled order of service at his funeral.
Brilliant!
What a great way to send off one of the worst characters that Coronation Street's ever had. Most hateable character, not the worst. That we did. Who's the worst? Dickie and Audrey Fleming.
Right, it's definitely time that we jiggled off ourselves now, I think. So thank you everybody for listening. Hope you enjoyed that trip down memory lane and Geoff's best and worst moments.
Yeah.
Do write in and tell us if you've got anything you want to add to the discussion about Geoff. We're going to go. Goodbye. See you. Thanks for listening. Ta-ra.
Bye.